Now I'm going to read the book of Jasher, starting at chapter 7. And these are the names of the sons of Noah: Japheth, Ham, and Shem. And children were born to them after the flood, for they had taken wives before the flood. These are the sons of Japheth: Gomer, Magog, Madai, Javan, Tubal, Meshech, and Tiras, 7 sons. And the sons of Gomer were Ashkenaz, Rephas, and Tegarma. And the sons of Magog were Elihanaf and Rubal. And the children of Madai were Ahon, Zilo, Chazoni, and Lot. And the sons of Javan were Elisha, Tarshish, Hittim, and Dudonim. And the sons of Tubal were Aripi, Kesed, and Tari. And the sons of Meshech were Dedon, Zaron, and Shebashni. And the sons of Tiras were Benib, Gera, Lupirion, and Gilak. These are the sons of Japheth, according to their families, and their numbers in those days were about 460 men. Wow. And these are the sons of Ham: Cush, Mitzrayim, Put, and Canaan, or Canaan. 4 sons. He had 4 sons. And the sons of Cush were Seba, Havila, Sabta, Rama, and Satecha. And the sons of Rama were Sheba and Dedan. And the sons of Mitzrayim were Lud, Anom, and Paphros, Haslof, and Haftor. And the sons of Phut were Gebul, Hadan, Bena, and Adan. And the sons of Canaan were Zidon, Heph, Amori, Gergashi, Hivi, Arki, Seni, Arodi, Zimodi, and Hamothi. I don't actually know how to read these names, but I will try my best. These are the sons of Ham, according to their families, and their numbers in those days were about 730 men. And these are the sons of Shem: Elam, Ashur, Arpaksad, Lud, and Aram, 5 sons. And the sons of Elam were Shushan, Mahul, and Harmon. And the sons of Ashar were Mirus and Mokil. And the sons of Arpakshad were Shelach, Anar, and Ashkol. And the sons of Lud were Pethor, Bizayon. And the sons of Aram were Uz, Hul, Gater, and Mash. These are the sons of Shem, according to their families, and their numbers in those days were about 300 men. These are the generations of Shem. Shem begat Arpakshad, and Arpakshad begat Shelach, and Shelach begat Eber, and to Eber were born 2 children. The name of one was Peleg, for in his days the sons of men were divided, and in the latter days the earth was divided. And the name, the earth was divided, as in the continents broke apart after the flood, during and after the flood. And the name of the second was Yoktam, meaning that in his day the lives of the sons of men were diminished and lessened. These are the sons of Yoktan: Almodad, Shelaf, Hazarmoves, Yerach, Hadurom, Ozel, Diklah, Obal, Abimael, Sheba, Ophir, Havila, and Jobab. All these are the sons of Yoktan. And Peleg his brothers begat Yen, and Yen begat Serug, and Serug begat Nahor, and Nahor begat Terah, and Terah was 38 years old, and he begat Haran and Nahor. So now we're getting to Abraham's family. And Cush, the son of Ham, the son of Noah, took a wife in those days in his old age, and she bore a son, and they called his name Nimrod, saying, at that time the sons of men again began to rebel and transgress against God. And the child grew up, and his father loved him exceedingly, for he was the son of his old age. He was the baby. And the garments of skin which God made for Adam and his wife, when they went out of the garden, were given to this guy, to Cush, the son of Ham, the son of Noah. For after the death of Adam and his wife, the garments were given to Enoch, the son of Jared. And when Enoch was taken up to God, he gave them to Methuselah his son. And at the death of Methuselah, Noah took them and brought them to the ark, and they were with him until he went out of the ark. And in their going out, Ham stole those garments from Noah his father, and he took them and hid them from his brothers. So Ham was kind of not a good guy. This is interesting that those clothes survived for thousands of years. Wow, such good skin garments. Good job, God. And when Ham begat his firstborn Cush, he gave him the garments in secret, and they were with Cush many days. And Cush also concealed them from his sons and brothers. And when Cush had begotten Nimrod, he gave him those garments through his love for him. And Nimrod grew up, and when he was 20 years old, he put on those garments. And Nimrod became strong when he put on the garments, and God gave him might and strength, and he was a mighty hunter in the earth. He was a mighty hunter in the field, and he hunted the animals, and he built altars, and he offered upon them the animals before the Lord. And Nimrod strengthened himself, and he rose up from among his brethren, and he fought the battles of his brethren against all their surrounding enemies. So they already had separate groups of people and fights. That's so sad. And the Lord delivered all the enemies of his brethren in his hands, and God prospered him from time to time in his battles, and he reigned upon earth. Therefore it became current in those days, when a man ushered out that he had trained up for battle, he would say to them, like God did to Nimrod. So kind of like, may you be blessed with victories, like Nimrod was blessed by God, who was a mighty hunter in the earth, and who succeeded in the battles that prevailed against his brethren, that he delivered them from the hands of their enemies. So may God strengthen us and deliver us this day. And when Nimrod was 40 years old, at that time there was a war between his brothers and the children of Japheth, so that they were in the power of their enemies. And Nimrod went out at that time, and he assembled all the sons of Cush and their families, about 460 men, and he hired also from some of his friends and acquaintances about 80 men, and he gave them their hire, and he went out with them to battle. And when he was on the road, Nimrod strengthened the hearts of the people that went with him. Motivational speech. And he said to them, "Do not fear, neither be alarmed, for all our enemies will be delivered into our hands, and you may do with them as you please." And all the men that went were about 500, and they fought against their enemies, and they destroyed them and subdued them. And Nimrod placed standing officers over them in their respective places. So we see some politics going on. And he took some of their children as security, and they were all servants to Nimrod and to his brethren. And Nimrod and all the people that were with him turned homeward. And when Nimrod had joyfully returned from battle, after having conquered his enemies, all his brethren, together with those who knew him before, assembled to make him king over them, and they placed the regal crown upon his head. And he set over his subjects and people, princes, judges, and rulers, as is the custom among kings. So he had the whole system. And he placed Terah, the son of Nahor, the prince of his host, and he dignified him and elevated him above all his princes. And while he was reigning according to his heart's desire, after having conquered all his enemies around, he advised with his counselors to build a city for his palace, and they did so. And they found a large valley opposite to the east, and they built him a large and extensive city, and Nimrod called the name of the city he had built Shinar, for the Lord had vehemently shaken his enemies and destroyed them. And Nimrod dwelt in Shinar, and he reigned securely, and he fought with his enemies, and he subdued them, and he prospered in all his battles, and his kingdom became very great. And all nations and tongues heard of his fame. And they gathered themselves to him, and they bowed down to the earth, and they brought him offerings, and he became their Lord and King. And they all dwelt with him in the city at Shinar, and Nimrod reigned in the earth over all the sons of Noah, and they were all under his power and counsel. And all the earth was of one tongue, one language, and words of union. But Nimrod did not go in the ways of the Lord, and he was more wicked than all the men that were before him from the days of the flood until those days. And he made gods of wood and stone, and he bowed down to them, and he rebelled against the Lord, and taught all his subjects and the people of the earth his wicked ways. And Mardon, his son, was more wicked than his father. And every one that heard of the acts of Mardon, the son of Nimrod, would say concerning him, from the wicked goes out wickedness. So something like father, like son. Therefore it became a proverb in the whole earth, saying, from the wicked goes out wickedness. And it was current in the words of men from that time to this time. And Terah the son of Nahor, prince of Nimrod's host, was in those days very great in the sight of the king and his subjects, and the king and his princes loved him, and they elevated him very high. And Terah took a wife, and her name was Amphelo, the daughter of Cornebo, and the wife of Terah conceived and bore him a son in those days. Terah was 70 years old when he begat him, and Terah called the name of his son that was born to him Abram, because the king had raised him in those days, and dignified him above all his princes that were with him. And this is chapter 8 now, long chapters at this point. And it was in the night that Abram was born, that all the servants of Terah and all the wise men of Nimrod and his conjurers came and ate and drank in the house of Terah, and they rejoiced with him on that night. So they had a party to celebrate the birth of his son, his first son Abram, which will become Abraham. And when all the wise men and conjurers went out from the house of Terah, they lifted up their eyes towards heaven that night to look at the stars, and they saw, and behold, one very large star came from the east, and ran in the heavens, and he swallowed up the 4 stars from the 4 sides of the heaven. And all the wise men of the king and his conjurers were astonished at the sight, and the sages understood this matter, and they knew its import, so they understood the meaning. And they said to each other, this only signifies the child that has been born to Terah this night, who will grow up and be fruitful and multiply and possess all the earth, he and his children forever, and he and his seed will slay great kings and inherit their lands. And the wise men and conjurers went home that night, and in the morning all these wise men and conjurers rose up early and assembled in an appointed house. And they spoke and said to each other, behold, the sight that we saw last night is hidden from the king. It has not been made known to him. And should this thing get known to the king in the latter days, he will say to us, why have you concealed this matter from me? And then we will all suffer death. Therefore let us go and tell the king the sight which we saw, and the interpretation thereof, and we will then remain clear. So they didn't want to get in trouble, so they told the king that Abram could cause him issues. So now Abram could be in trouble. And they did so, and they all went to the king and bowed down to him to the ground, and they said, may the king live, may the king live. We heard that a son was born to Terah, the son of Nahor, the prince of your host, and we last night came to his house, and we ate and drank and rejoiced with him that night. And when your servants went out from the house of Terah to go to our respective homes to abide there for the night, we lifted up our eyes to heaven, and we saw a great star coming from the east, and the same star ran with great speed and swallowed up 4 great stars from the 4 sides of the heavens. And your servants were astonished at the sight which we saw, and were greatly terrified, and we made our judgment upon the sight, and knew by our wisdom the proper interpretation thereof, that this thing applies to the child that is born to Terah, who will grow up and multiply greatly and become powerful and kill all the kings of the earth and inherit all their lands, he and his seed forever. Except they slightly misunderstood it. It was spiritual. And now, our Lord and King, behold, we have truly acquainted you with what we have seen concerning this child. If it seems good to the king to give his father value for this child, we will slay him before he will grow up and increase in the land. And his evil increase against us, that we and our children perish through his evil. And the king heard their words, and they seemed good in his sight. And he sent and called for Terah, and Terah came before the king. And the king said to Terah, I've been told that a son was last night born to you, and after this manner was observed in the heaven at his birth. And now therefore give me the child, that we may slay him before his evil springs up against us, and I will give you for his value your house full of silver and gold. This is crazy. This is a crazy world to try to make such a deal. And be honest about it too. What kind of world did they live in? What kind of rules did they have? And Terah answered the king and said to him, My lord and king, I have heard your words, and your servant will do all that his king desires. But my lord and king, I will tell you what happened to me last night, that I may see what advice the king will give his servant, and then I will answer the king upon what he has just spoken. And the king said, Speak. And Terah said to the king, Son of Mored, came to me last night. So Ayon, son of Mored, came to me last night saying, I don't know who that guy is, but he spoke to the father, Give unto me the great and beautiful horse that the king gave you, and I will give you silver and gold and straw and provender for its value. And I said to him, Wait until I see the king concerning your words, and behold, whatever the king says, that I will do. And now, my lord and king, behold, I have made this thing known to you, and the advice which my king will give unto his servant, that I will follow. And the king heard the words of Terah, and his anger was kindled, and he considered him in the light of a fool. And the king answered Terah, and he said to him, Are you silly, ignorant, or deficient in understanding, to do this thing, to give your beautiful horse for silver and gold, or even for straw and provender? Are you so short of silver and gold that you should do this thing, because you cannot obtain straw and provender to feed your horse? And what is silver and gold to you, or straw and provender, that you should give away that fine horse which I gave you, like which there is none to be had on the whole earth? So this is, Terah is pretty much doing an analogy for the king to understand that what he's asking him is just absurd. He will not be willing to give his son for anything, and he doesn't need anything to be tempted to give his son away. So the king felt about that beautiful horse the same way he feels about giving away his child. And then the king understands. But I don't know if it's going to change anything. Let's see. And the king left off speaking, and Terah answered the king, saying, Like unto this has the king spoken to his servant. I implore you, my lord and king, what is this which you said to me, saying, Give your son that we may slay him, and I will give you silver and gold for his value? What will I do with silver and gold after the death of my son? Who will inherit me? Surely then at my death the silver and gold will return to my king, who gave it to me. And when the king heard the words of Terah and the parable which he brought concerning the king, it grieved him greatly, and he was vexed at this thing, and his anger burned within him. And Terah saw that the anger of the king was kindled against him, and he answered the king, saying, All that I have is in the king's power. Whatever the king desires to do his servant, that let him do. Even my son, he is in the king's power, without value in exchange. He and his 2 brothers, they are older than he. And the king said to Terah, No, but I will purchase your younger son for a price. And Terah answered the king, saying, I implore you, my lord and king, to let your servant speak a word before you, and let the king hear the word of his servant. And Terah said, Let my king give me 3 days, until I consider this matter within myself, and consult with my family concerning the words of my king. And he pressed the king greatly to agree to this. And the king hearkened, he listened to Terah, and he did so, and he gave him 3 days' time. And Terah went out from the king's presence, and he came home to his family, and spoke to them all the words of the king, and the people were greatly afraid. And it was in the 3rd day that the king sent to Terah, saying, Send me your son for a price, as I spoke to you, and should you not do this, I will send and slay all you have in your house, so that you will not even have a dog remaining. Crazy, just crazy, violent, evil world. And Terah hastened, he rushed, as the thing was urgent from the king. And he took a child from one of his servants, which his handmaid had borne to him that day. And Terah brought the child to the king, and received value for him. And the Lord was with Terah in this matter, that Nimrod might not cause Abram's death. And the king took the child from Terah, and with all his might dashed his head to the ground, for he thought it had been Abram. And this was concealed from him from that day, and it was forgotten by the king, as it was the will of providence, so the will of God, not to suffer Abram's death. This is crazy. And Terah took Abram his son secretly together with his mother and nurse, and he concealed them in a cave, and he brought them their provisions monthly. And the Lord was with Abram in the cave, and he grew up, and Abram was in the cave 10 years. And the king and his princes, soothsayers and sages, thought that the king had killed Abram. And that was chapter 8. This is insane. If this is a true story, this is insane. That was a crazy world. And the king truly was selfish and evil. And that's interesting because it kind of changes the narrative compared to the Genesis, as in Abram or Abraham knew his whole life, and his family knew that he had been selected. He has been chosen by God for a really special, powerful purpose. Whereas in the Bible, it kind of creates this impression that he learned about it much later. So I don't know, did they know but did not tell him? Or did he know, but he had another encounter with God who reconfirmed that calling for him? Or is this just a beautiful made-up story? Horrifying, but a piece of art. Whew! Wow! Just wow. Okay. Well, how about I start a new video with the next chapter, because this was long. But that was chapter 8.